Here's the BCA statement right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Drew Evans, and I am the Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. The public in the state of Minnesota expects that when a person is killed in one of our communities, an independent, thorough, and transparent investigation is conducted into that incident to fully understand what occurred when any law enforcement authority is involved in a deadly force encounter. Minnesotans not only expect this, but they deserve this. That's what our BCA Force Investigations Unit does. For years now, our independent unit has investigated the majority of use of deadly force incidents in our state. That's true for entities like the BCA, and it's common practice across the United States. That includes incidents involving federal officers and other high-profile incidents like have occurred in the city of Minneapolis and across our state, not only in recent months, but in recent years. Our highly trained independent team of investigators, crime scene personnel, are experts at conducting these types of investigations. This is all they do. We do not make decisions about guilt or innocent, but we compile the facts of the incident for review by proper prosecutorial authorities, both at the state and federal levels. This morning, I was in contact with the Minneapolis Police Department after the incident that you're all familiar with now. They requested our Force Investigations Unit respond to the scene and conduct such an independent investigation as we have in other recent incidents in the city of Minneapolis. What occurred was our team responded to the scene, and I was in contact with federal authorities to inform them that that was going to occur and that we were responding to the scene in Minneapolis. When our team arrived, they were blocked by federal agents with the Department of Homeland Security from accessing the scene. We worked with them and were in contact with the FBI, trying to attempt to access the scene so we can gather evidence to understand what occurred and work through this process. Our team also secured a search warrant for the scene, which is an unusual move in a public area like that, but we did that attempting to have judicial approval to enter this scene to gather evidence. We were once again blocked by federal authorities to go in and do that scene examination. We have a long history of working side by side with the Federal Bureau of Investigation on all types of cases. That's true in other high-profile incidents that you've seen in officer-involved shootings, and that remains the case that we do and will be going forward. They're excellent partners to us as an organization, but unfortunately, in these recent events, others outside of the state are making decisions that that does not occur. So we will continue to investigate this case and others that we have recently been involved with, but I would be remiss if I didn't state that it will be difficult to obtain all of the evidence and information contained without cooperation. It is my understanding at this time that this case is now being led by the Department of Homeland Security Investigations as an investigation into this matter, and not the FBI leading that at this point in time. As the FBI gathered information and conducted crime scene evaluation, they left. After they left, we were attempting to move in to do our own scene examination once we can access the scene, but federal agents that cleared the scene, as was previously said, the state and local police that were on scene from the beginning of this, providing protection of that scene alongside federal agents trying to allow us to do our work, were unable to hold that scene, and it got overrun with protesters in the area, and we were not able to re-examine that scene. I'm aware, and our team is aware, of the videos that you've seen, and we would welcome additional information provided to our team going forward that will continue a full investigation to the best of our ability with what we have, and we will do that as we always have, fairly independently in that process and transparently as we do in every investigation, and provide that without recommendation to the county attorney's office for review. You know, we're in uncharted territory here. It's been a long-standing understanding both within our state and across the country that entities like the BCA that conduct 80+% of officer-involved shooting investigations across the United States are asked to do these investigations of federal agents involved in officer-involved shootings. There certainly can be a new process going forward if the federal government would like to do that and federal agencies, but that has not been a discussion that's been had so that we can provide clear understanding to citizens to understand what that process will be. And so we will continue to investigate this case. We welcome cooperation. I'd continue to ask that we provided access to any information that's necessary to do a complete investigation, and that we want to work together with all of our federal partners so that we can really understand what occurs in any of these cases. An officer-involved shooting is an incredibly complex incident, regardless of the video that you see. And the only way to really truly understand what occurred is to have a full investigation of the matter so that we can really understand what we all see that happens in a very short period of time that is often incredibly complex and requires a very thorough and large investigation to really understand what occurs in those very few moments that we often see. We'll continue to pursue partnerships with our federal partners in these investigations and others going forward, as it's clear to us and it's clear to all of us in Minnesota that we at the state and local level have an expectation when something happens in our communities that an investigation not only is done by our federal partners, but also by state and locals into various incidents as we see them. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and our Force Investigations Unit is committed to continuing to work on these sorts of incidents and conduct those independent investigations at the request of our local partners. Whenever that happens, Minnesotans deserve that so that they can fully understand what occurred in each and every one of these incidents, so they can really have an understanding of what occurred each time something happens in our communities. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
So to be clear, you said you got a signed official warrant to gain access and were still denied by federal agents?
Yes, that's accurate. The question was, we had a signed warrant and we were still denied access to the scene. That's accurate, correct.
How uncharted is that? And have you had any contact? You said that you understand DHS is leading now. Have you had contact since then? And is there any reason to believe that there is now a new way forward?
Yeah, the question was, have I had any contact since it's my understanding DHS is running this investigation? I attempted to contact the individual that I was told was the overall commander at the scene, and I have not received a call back from them. We will continue to work together to gather that, and make that contact, and understand their process, but we have not had contact yet today.
How much investigative work were agents able to do at the scene and when they could get access?
We were not able to do really any work at the scene once we had access because it was quickly overrun and overtaken. That being said, we have been out talking to witnesses, gathering information, gathering various video, and we'll continue to do that work. You saw in the recent shooting in North Minneapolis, if and when it's prudent and we need to, we can always return at a different time if there's relevant evidence at the scene. The question is, do we know the identity of the federal agents involved in the shooting? Not only on this case, but the other two that have happened, the federal entity, Department of Homeland Security in particular, does not provide us that information. They have not provided us that information in this case as well. Yeah. So the question is, how do we ensure a thorough investigation if we weren't provided access to the information? It's complicated. You know, that's why the long history of jointly working investigations when the federal entities conduct their own investigation is really important. And we have a long established process of doing that, and we'd welcome that now, or we'd welcome parallel investigations where they share information with us. And to be clear, the BCA will share everything we obtain in our investigation with them. To say that we can do this in the manner that our team normally does, which is a very strict and established protocol, that obviously is disrupted. When we don't have access to the crime scene, we don't have the ability to map the scenes that we normally would in that process, so it will be compromised in some level of getting all of that. The hope is that we'll use all the different tools available to take different paths to do the best that we can with the information that we do have.
WCCO, so on the point about the warrant, it sounds like earlier, just to be clear, you said you took that step preemptively, knowing before
Yeah.
agents were allowed to access the scene.
So the question was about the warrant and then access to the scene. We took the step of getting the search warrant because we were denied access to the scene. So we thought that we'd be able to get access to the scene, much like we would anywhere else, by having an independent judge agree that we have probable cause to investigate the incident at the scene. That was provided the information to the Department of Homeland Security, and they said that this was a scene and matter being investigated by the federal government, and they would not allow us physical access to the scene.
So you arrived at the scene, you were denied, you go to a judge, ask for a warrant, though Judge Grant said warrant, you show up with that, and you're still denied.
That's accurate. We were denied after we provided information we had a warrant. Please.
Jeff Day with the Minnesota Star Tribune. I'm not trying to be glib here. Has local law enforcement lost the ability to pursue the rule of law against these federal officers? I'm just trying to understand, what does that mean for this operation measure?
Yeah, the question was about, has local law enforcement lost the ability for the rule of law? I will tell you that I and other law enforcement leaders continue to have discussions about this. It is important for people to understand just across Minnesota that there are two different, sets of illegal entities in the United States that conduct law enforcement operations: state and local, and federal, and then tribal and territorial. And normally, and under normal circumstances, we work hand in hand in partnership on a variety of different criminal investigations. Each and every day, BCA agents and local law enforcement across Minnesota are conducting violent crime investigations, drug investigations, human trafficking. We work together with the federal government all of the time. This is a situation where we're in a different place for a variety of reasons when it comes to this, and we need to find a path forward. You've heard various people say that we need to look to turn the temperature down. I look to turn the temperature down not only because of a situation that all of us want to be in across the state of Minnesota, to be safe in our homes and communities each and every day, but importantly so that we aren't in a position where there is a standoff between local, state, and federal law enforcement authorities. We have a long history of working together in partnership, and we need to keep in mind that we're all safer, we're all better together when we can do that collectively together.
One more at the far end and then one more after that.
Mary Murphy with the Farm News Service. Were you able to confirm the identity of the man who was fatally shot, and then also can you confirm the whereabouts of the officers who were involved in this shooting?
The questions are, can I confirm the identity? I'm aware of what's being reported. That's who we believe the individual to be, but the medical examiner will be the one to officially identify them, or at least provide us permission to do that. The second part of the question was, do we know the location of the officers involved? And the answer is, I do not know.
One more.
Superintendent, Queen War for the question about past situations you guys have dealt with on this. Have you ever had a situation where the FBI is denying access to the scene like this? Under what circumstances have those happened in the past?
So the question was, have I ever had a situation where federal authorities denied access to a scene? Not in my, 20 plus years at the BCA and a situation like that. There's certainly investigations for, national security and sensitive reasons we wouldn't have a line of sight into, nor would it be our position to ask for access to information in those particular instances. In instances where there's really concurrent federal and state jurisdiction over a matter, I'm not aware of an instance where that's ever happened. So
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Access the scene.
Appreciate it.
All right, Drew Evans there giving us an update from the perspective of the Minnesota BCA as the superintendent, really saying that the type of work they do is independent and transparent, and asking for a seat at the table after, for the first time in his experience in over 20 years, that the entities at the federal level are not working with those at the state and local level in these investigations.
It's stunning. He said they had a warrant because they figured that would help, because last time they didn't, and they had a warrant that they presented, and he said that the feds did not allow them to go in there and conduct an investigation.
Access.
Yeah, he said they actually completed no work at the scene, so they have nothing they're working off of right now.
It's unprecedented. We'll bring in Esme Murphy. She's got a lot of experience with Esme. Unprecedented would be the word. I mean, I've never heard or seen of anything like that where they X out the agency that is involved and primarily in investigating officer-involved shootings in this state.
Yeah, this is really concerning, Frank. This is the situation and the relationship, if it, whatever it exists, it sounds like it's completely deteriorated. I mean, I think one thing you need to look at is where this happened. This happened on a public street. There was no presumption of privacy at all. This is a public street in a very busy area in Minneapolis, and the Minnesota BCA is being blocked from the investigation. Then when they come back with a warrant, they are blocked again. I think this is as Drew Evans said, this is uncharted territory, and I think it's one that's very difficult. Now, I just learned that there is going to be a news conference with Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, and the mayor, and I'm hoping that perhaps they can do the bridge here. The question is there anybody who can talk to the Trump administration? Because the language on the two sides is really tough. I mean, Congressman Emmer has been very, very vocal, angry. So have other people on the protesters' side. So I think this is absolutely never happened before. And in fact, Drew Evans, the head of the BCA, just said, if you're creating a new system for investigating officer-involved shootings, we need to know, because this is completely unprecedented. So it's pretty grave, and I just hope that cooler heads can prevail in light of this. But that's really extraordinary.
Esme, typically at the very least, would a parallel investigation simply be allowed, even if there wasn't a lot of inner workings between the state and the feds? At least normally, would there be a parallel investigation happening throughout?
Absolutely.
With equal access? Absolutely.
And I think it certainly happened in George Floyd. I mean, that was definitely the case. It certainly happened in the horror of the Annunciation shooting. That happened. There were federal investigators, there were state investigators. They worked together. And I think Susan Elizabeth brought up a point where you don't really go to these press conferences and they all spend the first minute thanking each other. This is just the opposite. And the fact that they're not communicating at any level, the fact that some conclusions are being drawn very quickly, just as they were in the Renee Good situation, is very, very concerning. And I think that when we get to this news conference at 4 o'clock, I'll be very interested to hear what Senator Klobuchar has to say. Especially because she certainly has been in the Senate for a number of years. Obviously, she's running for governor. That's a political thing, I know, but I think she's running for governor because so many people have come to her and said the state is in desperate need of new leadership and a calm new voice and a new chapter. So we'll see, but I'm going to be heading to that news conference here in just a minute. It's down at City Hall. It's with Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, and also with Mayor Frey.
This is kind of odd, but Christine Noem's supposed to speak at 4 o'clock as well. So I wonder if this is intentional, or I'd love to see some coordination, because I'm sure people would be interested in hearing both.
And can't we give our viewers the perspective too from us as journalists? We usually don't have 10 different press conferences from different places. Right. It is much more of a concerted effort usually in these big cases, right, us?
Right, absolutely. There's much more coordination. There's obviously no coordination here. I do know that out of respect, for instance, the commander of the Border Patrol, Bovino, held a news conference earlier this week in which he waited because the president was holding a news conference, I believe, in Davos, Switzerland. So there is that kind of respect due, and I think there will be that kind of respect due. It'll be interesting to know, to see what happens. I mean, and also, these people know each other. Governor Walz knows Kristi Noem. They were governors together. Certainly, Senator Klobuchar knows all of these players. It'd be great to know that they were coming together at some point, but we will see. Tune in, folks, and see which news conference you see around 4 o'clock here, because we'll have them all.